just about 30 minutes ago, we had Biden coming on and giving a national address and telling the American people how important it was for us to give away, another $600 billion, which we're paying $1 billion an hour just to keep the interest down on the $33 trillion of debt that has been placed on the backs of future generations. It's really crazy how they think it's okay to kick the can and to borrow money and to continue to give out all this foreign aid when things are, as far as infrastructure and healthcare and citizens' rights here in America, uh, we have this war on terror and the borders aren't even secure. But anyway, so tonight, Kimberly Baker is going to join us and she's going to be talking about the American State Nationals and an alternative viewpoint and perspective to history and also to being a law abiding citizen. Definitely something that most people have not heard about. And when she started talking to me about it, I was thoroughly interested, and I think you will be as well. I do have one other thing to state before I forget, and that was that somebody had reached out to me, and this was maybe even a year ago, and asked me to be a representative in this manner. And, I'm still new to a lot of this information and very much not familiar. So I didn't seem like I felt qualified. But also, this individual sent me some money, and I was unable to get the address. And so I wanted to have, if you are listening, if you hear this show, if you could please reach out to me again, because I just wanted to tell you thank you and to respond, which I usually try to do to anybody that does reach out to me. And so, if you were that person, or if you are an individual that has reached out to me and I have not returned reply, um, know that I am terribly busy, but that I do try to respond. And so, if you would just reach out again, and we'll try to make that happen. But, anyways, Kimberly, are you there, sister?
I am here, Zen. It's so good to be here with you tonight.
It's my great honor. And before we move into the topic, I think we should mention how and what we are going to be doing. In fact, with Kaumba, the orphanage in Kenya, and Robert helping him and working with him to build a school there. And I do want to thank all of you that did reach out to assist us in that endeavor. We are moving on to the second aspect, and we are going to set up an advisory council to give us guidance in working with the Kenyan government to make this happen and to make it all occur in a way that would be, um, the correct manner as far as setting up this kind of a school system. And so, Kimberly, I'll give you a chance to comment on that. And we will be doing a show later on this topic in its entirety and keeping everybody up to date on our progress. But tonight, uh, as the show states, we're going to be focused on this other aspect, this other hat that Kimberly wears. And I think as a patriot, that a lot of people would be very blessed by the information that you've uncovered and the things that you have done in this alternative life of yours. And so, if you would um, also, share where people can reach out and contact you, because I think that people would be wanting to do so.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as far as Kenya is concerned, at the orphanage, we were doing a three-phase project. We finished phase one with you guys in the spring and got land. Thank the supporters of Zen Garcia and Endeavor Freedom. So we're so grateful for that. Phase two is now going to be on building the buildings, the classrooms. And so we do have a license and certificate. Robert did get that done through the schooling. And yes, we're setting up an advisory board. And so that should be kicking off soon to start raising funds to start building the trailers, the little trailers that they do for classrooms.
Yeah, the infrastructure, which that's going to be exciting and to see it progress in that manner. But um, did you want to share a contact email or
Yes.
anything?
My contact email for anyone who wants to contact me is simply Baker, Baker, Kimberly, Kimberly at outlook.com. Baker Kimberly at outlook.com.
All right. Sorry about my voice.
That's okay.
I'll sip some water while you're talking, but if you would, can you introduce this subject to
Absolutely.
everybody? I'll be right back.
Absolutely. So I became an American State National in 2021. My husband and I became American State Nationals, and we had learned that our birth certificate, it's crazy, but we've been in a place of fraud, and the government that we have in Washington, D.C. is not actually our government. It is actually our subcontractors. Um, we were all born on the land as American state nationals, but when Franklin D. Roosevelt, the president during the 1933s, he ended up giving us the birth certificate. And the birth certificate actually takes us as babies and turns us into an all caps name, which is a corporation. So that's kind of the history of that. And so, but what I have learned in the amount of time that I've been an American State National is that we were promised in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, we were promised to have our Republican form of government. And, you know, we don't actually really know what that is as the American people. And the reason why is because 6 generations has passed since our Republican form of government went dormant. It went dormant after the Civil War. And so our Republican form of government has not even been in action or in session, I guess you'd say. Actually, it was never taken out of session because when the Continental Congress walked out during the right there in 1863, I think, when they walked out of Congress, they didn't reconvene or set a date to reconvene. So the session was just left open. But anyway, on to the history of what happened there. We actually have our history further back. And I just learned of that recently. And this is the history that we were not told in our history books. You guys know that when an enemy wins in a war, they get to make the history whatever they want it to be. They can change the books and the next generations won't actually know what happened. The truth of that anyway. Well, that's basically what happened here in the United States. But where it all starts is 1087. In 1087, William Wallace the Conqueror, William the Conqueror.
Braveheart.
Yeah, Braveheart, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome.
In 10, so I can take our American history, and I just learned this like 2 weeks ago. It's so amazing. But our American history actually starts in 1087 with William the Conqueror. And William the Conqueror, he had done what's called the Norman Conquest. And with the Norman Conquest, he went and he took his barons and his men, and he went on a rampage through England. And anyway, he ended up winning. And before he died, he had made the Norman settlement. And in that Norman settlement, he gave every single one of his barons who fought, which is probably like 100 guys, he gave every single one of them sovereignty in their own right for them and all their generations. So those barons that fought with him, even though he died, they all had sovereignty. Now, back then, you don't just have sovereignty like we have our God-given sovereignty, yes, and our individual right. But when you look at governments, it doesn't work that way. Your sovereignties are usually the royals. The reason you would really need sovereignty is for international trade. Back then in 1087, sovereignty, that's how you would do international trade. You had to be a sovereign to do international trade. And so anyway, William gave his barons all sovereignty. And so they all had sovereignty in England, which meant that the crown could not be a monarch anymore because there were more sovereigns in the area. So it kind of put like shackles on the king in that during that time. But one of the guys' names was Belcher, okay? His last name was Belcher. Belcher was one of the barons. In 1608, so that was 1087, they had their sovereignty, and their sovereignty goes all the way through their line. It'll stay forever in perpetuity through that bloodline. And so the Belchers in 1608 moved from England to the United States, and they went and started and helped build Boston, Massachusetts. Okay, 1608. Belcher family. When they get here, he ends up becoming a commander in the military or in the militia. He becomes a commander when they are going and they're having the Revolutionary War. And so when that war is over, okay, when that war is over, King John had stepped aside. He was no longer, so basically all of those who fought, they now have no king over them at this moment, or no one over them. So you needed sovereigns to be able to do international trade. Well, we just had a whole bunch of people fight, but no one knew of a sovereign. So William Belcher is his name. He was the commander during that time. His family, the Belcher family, which goes back to William the Conqueror, who gave them their sovereignty. He stood up and said, from this moment on, I give sovereignty to all of those who fought in the war and their families forever, and anyone else that was born from that day forward in the United States or in America would have sovereignty and their descendants forever. So that is where we get our sovereignty as Americans.
Wow. That's very interesting, because it seems like, and I learned this a while back. I read a book about how Queen Elizabeth was, such a large landowner, and that she actually held sovereignty over, like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, that all of these places, and they even, have the Queen's facade put on their money, on their currency. Um, and so, she is the actual landowner of all of these territories as well. And she, along with the Vatican, is holds like 1/6 of the territory of the entire earth, which is very intriguing. And like a lot of people believe that they, own their real estate, but there's some kind of legal precedence that trumps that, and I don't know exactly how that is. But is this also, what led to the Magna Carta and other things like that came up during history?
So the Magna Carta happened in 1215. And so the signing of the Magna Carta, so 1087 was William Wallace and William the Conqueror, and 1215 was Magna Carta. And see, Magna Carta is when the people came and pretty much forced the king by their demand to sign the Magna Carta. We got our Declaration of Independence from pieces of the Magna Carta as well. Um, it definitely fits into how we became the American sovereigns that we are. But it was through that Belcher family. And so the Belcher family, when that happened and the sovereignty happened, they used his coat of arms and they used his family's seal. So when you see the seal with the eagle and the olives and in its feet, you know what I'm talking about? The American seal. When you see
Yeah.
that, that seal is actually the seal, the family seal of the Belcher family.
Huh.
And anyway, so basically that happened then. That was 1608. So there was courts and there was a form of government that was being kind of put into place across the territories, grassroots level back in 1608. After we had the War of Independence, when we had that, that is where we locked everything in with the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence is actually what is over the American people. We are actually not under the constitutions. We say that all the time, but it's the false training that we got in school. We are not under the Constitution, but we are owed its guarantees. We're owed the guarantees of the Constitution because we, the people, wrote the 3 constitutions that we have. We actually have 3, not just one. We wrote those constitutions as the people to the British territorial government, to the Vatican, which is the municipal territory government in the United States. And we wrote those for them. And so they have to obey the Constitution because it's their contract. And we gave the British territorial government, which is, just so you know, guys, our British territorial government that we have in place right now, where we gave them 18 enumerated services in the Constitution, and they were not to do no more than that. That is the government where we have the president and the vice president and the Congress, and all of that is your British territorial government. That they are under the first Constitution, or actually the second Constitution. The other Constitution, which is the Constitution of the United States. We have the Constitution for the United States of America. We have the Constitution of the United States of America, and we also have the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States is the contract we made with the Vatican, which is the municipal government. And we do have the municipal government doing things in our country. For instance, they're the ones that run the post office. We delegated as the people. We delegated the powers, delegated powers to the Vatican and the municipal government to run our post office for us. We asked the British Navy, okay, so the British territorial government, they weren't actually supposed to be in all of our courts and all of our judges and all of our, they weren't supposed to be in all of our stuff, but they did get into all of our stuff during the Civil War. And this is where this big coup takes place. Abraham, so in the first Constitution so I told you about the second Constitution and the third. The first Constitution is the Constitution for the United States of America. It's for the United States of America. And the U is not capitalized. The U in United is lowercase because the United States of America, our Republican form of government that was put in place first, is an adjective. That United States of America is an adjective describing the states of America. That was the Constitution that we had in place with the Federation of States, which is our Republican form of government that has been dormant since 1865. Now, here's what happened. So Lincoln ends up running for president. Well, based on the first Constitution we have, they had Amendment 13 that did get ratified and did go in and be instated. But they had said, but the British government now, years later, says that no, it wasn't ratified and that one didn't count. Well, the key on that 13th Amendment was that you could not hold titles of nobility and run for office in the elections. And title of nobility would be someone that would be a judge or a bar attorney, a Brit. They couldn't hold those type titles and be in our government. The reason why is because it is British. It's part of the British rule. For instance, an attorney, they have to take a bar exam. Bar means British accredited registry, which means that when they take that bar exam, they now work for the Queen. And so they're part of the British accredited registry, where you couldn't hold office and hold anything from the British and be part of our government. Well, Abraham Lincoln was an attorney. He was a bar attorney. And so the big fit that the South threw was that you couldn't have a bar attorney become president and couldn't hold titles of nobility. Yes, they did have fights over the slaves, but what the documents that we have show that there were bigger things that were under the fire besides just slavery. I understand slavery is a big thing, but that was more of your political push type thing that they threw in there. I shouldn't say as a false flag. It's not a false flag, but they made it a social issue so that they could hide the fact that the British territorial government was going to start a war to take over our government. I don't know how plainer to say that.
You're doing awesome. And Emily in the chat, she says that she's been wanting to become a state national for a few months, but it's over her head. But she understands that this is true freedom. How can she become involved? Because you did tell me that there's a movement in all 50 states to set up what we're going to be going into a little bit later, something that you recently achieved. So can you make mention of that in answer to her question?
Yes. So how you would become involved is go to our national website. It is TASA. That's TASA. T is in Tom. TASA. That stands for the American. My mind just went blank. American states. I don't know. My mind went blank, but it's TASA
You can look it up during
American. It's TASA.AmericanStateNationals.org.
Okay. When you get a chance, if you're in the chat, can you place that? And then we'll try to put it in the description as well.
Yes.
But we are just a few minutes out from break, just so you know, got like 3 minutes.
Okay. So as far as I'll go back and tell the story when we come back about Abraham Lincoln and how that went down. But we have, so just to take a quick minute, we have actually, the Belcher family that gave us the seals is still in operation today. They're the ones that made sure that we found out that we were actually sovereigns in the Republican form of government. They had all the records in their attic from the descendants. And so they, Anna von Wrights and her husband, James Clinton Belcher, have set up our Federation of States and has put our federal Republican government in place. And when we have raised all 50 states, so we're now in all 50 states, but now we're building our courts and our militias. And we're just set up the courts in Arkansas. They went into action August 27th. The common law courts are here in Arkansas for the American state national people. And that will keep us out of the courts that we have in place, and I'll explain all of why they're in place the way they are when we come back. But we're setting up courts and militia in all 50 states. So,
Awesome.
and it is our Republican form of government that was hidden from us. We had no idea it had been laying dormant. It's by the people, for the people, and of the people, and we just didn't. It's now being set up the correct way.
Tammy posted a link, tassa.americannational.com, in the chat too. And she is our moderator, so you guys can find that in there as well. But yeah, I've got a number of questions when we return, and I don't want to, try to get you to remember them now, but I do have, wanted to ask about the 3 different constitutions and what the variations are, the differences, and then, when we return, you can elaborate on all of that. But we'll be right back, everyone, for second portion.
I love motherhood more than I could have ever imagined. One of the most important things to me is nurturing a strong foundation in Yahusha's character in our children. That said, I made sheets that went over the fruits of the Spirit, the armor of God, the 10 Commandments, and creation days. Each day at breakfast, we would go over these and then read books like Cat in the Hat that just felt so void in meaning, but they loved the rhymes. I looked everywhere for rhyming biblical principles and couldn't find any. That's when I decided I would make them myself. Praise God, we now have our first book, Eliana and Ezra's Journey Through the Fruits of the Spirit, a first in a series. Every morning we now can continue to build strong principles even through rhymes, and I wanted to offer it to the babies in your life too. Please go to Sacred Word Publishing and search Fruits of the Spirit to get your copy, or you can go to prophecyforchildren.com. Thank you so much.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
sovereignty, the other being to address the Queen and I guess that monarchy, and the other to address the Vatican. Can you elaborate on why there was a need for three and what the difference is, if there are, those kind of things in the Constitution, what they were?
So the interesting thing is okay, so in the different constitutions, so after the Revolutionary War, we actually were, like I had said earlier, we were we didn't have a king over us, we didn't have anything over us, but we were just kind of off on our own. This was before the Declaration of Independence and all that. This was back from the Revolutionary War. Well, what we had done after our War of Independence, we didn't have the big navy that the British had. So we wanted to be able to do international trade, which is why we all had to be, but we had to have a sovereign. Belcher made us all sovereigns. But one of the first things that we enacted as a treaty with them was that their navy would protect our trade ships going back and forth. And they had control. So the British had control of our international waterways and our inland waterways early on. So that was one of the delegated powers that we set forth with the British territorial government in that Constitution. But in the Constitution of the United States, it talks about all of your postal stuff, which went to the municipal, which is the Vatican. But once you realize that the Vatican and the British monarchy, or that British government, their goal has been both of those goal is to take over the whole world, which they ended up taking over our country. And they took over our country in the Civil War, because when we fought the Civil War and the southern states of the Continental Congress walked out and didn't come back into session, a lot of people don't even know that we ended up having another president. We had two presidents at one time. Because the South was so upset about President Abraham Lincoln becoming president and him being a bar attorney, they actually put in place their own president at the time. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's Jefferson Davis.
Yeah, Jefferson Davis, right.
And he was the last American president that we had from our Republican form of government. That was the Constitution for the United States. We couldn't have someone with titles of nobility run for office. So Lincoln couldn't have been the president of the Republican form of government. He was the president of the British monarchy coming in to take over our whole process, and they did it. They just basically mirrored it. It's fascinating how they did that. But our Republican form. So what happened was, when the Congress walked out, the North and the South, they battled it out. All of our sons and daughters are just being slaughtered on the battlefield. People are stressed out when the war is over. So when the war is over, what had happened was the common law courts that we are owed, our common law courts, that's how the courts were run here forever. They even had courts before our Declaration of Independence. They had common law courts set up here way back, even in the 1600s, the common law. They were the English common law courts, but they were common law courts just the same. Those were set up. But when the war was over, the North was so mad at the South. Now, remember, their president is Abraham Lincoln, and he is a British accredited registry attorney. So he is an employee of the British Crown. What they did was he instituted his own Congress, and he put Congress back in session. And that was your British Territorial Congress. And then him being president, they basically came in and took over our courts. So we had what was called carpetbagger courts. Some people may remember that. The reason they called them carpetbagger courts is the military actually came in and to the southern states, and they set up 10 districts in 11 states of military courts that we were told that as soon as we restored our Republican form of government and restored our courts, that they would step aside. Well, that never happened because they brought in their own carpetbagger judges to do military style like tribunals to excise taxes and fees from the Southerners, and was like really just pillaging them financially, kind of like the courts do now, tickets and stuff, you know what I'm saying? Right. So the people were really stressed. And so our courts in the South never came back. The common law courts never came back, but the ones in the other 50 states or the other states that weren't part of the South that still had their common law, over the next 50 years, the British would end up taking over every single one of those courts. And our courts that were guaranteed in the Declaration of Independence and Constitution are trial by jury courts, and it's a jury of our peers, and we're owed due process.
Habeas corpus.
That's it. And yes, and if there's no victim, no crime. So basically, it's God's law. It's natural law. It's as long as you don't harm anybody or hurt them or kill them, and as long as you don't damage or destroy or harm somebody's property. Other than that, you self-govern. And that's the common law. Now, with great freedom comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
The sentences are usually a little harsher on common law courts when you do harm somebody or you do steal or damage somebody's property. You see what I'm saying? But you're not going to get a speeding ticket,
Mm-hmm.
And so those courts were actually taken down. So eventually all 50 states now have those courts. And that is the courts that we've had for the past 6 generations. See, that's the thing. We've all grown up, and our grandparents and our parents all grew up with this democracy. And see, we don't live in a democracy. And you'll hear on TV the congressmen and all them say, we've got to protect our democracy or do this for our democracy. Right. And, you sit there and you shake your head going, but we don't live in a democracy. But actually, the British territorial government form of government is a democracy. We just didn't realize that our Republican form of government had been dormant and never did get reinstated and reset up. And so that's where we are today, is reestablishing what was stolen from us. We have all the documentation of the steal. We have everything that takes it all the way back, and where they lied to us in the history books. We have the documentation of all of that too. We have some great researchers who've taken many years who founded this whole thing and put the pieces of the story together like pieces of a puzzle, trying to find all the history. But anyway, it's all there. And so that's the fantastic part, guys. Our republic, it's by the people, for the people, and of the people. We really don't know what that means. That means that in every state, we gather together and we run the government. There's not much. I mean, there's some things to run, but it shouldn't be run so big. We are the government that of the people, by the people, for the people. We have our own courts. So that way we get a fair trial, because we know that there's not some, government or something in charge. It's just we the people. You see what I'm saying? It's we the people running our own courts. And I actually have a quote by John Hancock, which is fantastic. In 1877, John Hancock wrote, "If we have not courts that are established and maintained by the people rather than by corruptible judges, then we will have no republic. Our Constitution and our nation will rise or fall according to the independence of our courts."
Yeah, and it's only here in America that we give them a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. And what kind of power is that? And they've been lately talking about minimizing and not allowing the justices to have lifetime appointed terms. But so with regard to this alternative this patriotic system, once you get the courts set up, um, how does that work, and what does that mean? And is it going to have to be like, there's all this supposed uh, representative electoral system put in place where people go vote for their what they believe to be their representatives, and they think that their vote actually counts when we have this whole electronic voting system in place. But are we going to have to set up alternative elections and set up an alternative like political system trumping, and how does that work with the courts and with getting out of the mess that we are in with this British system that's in place?
Well, the easiest thing that we can do, and we are at peace. We are not at war. We fly the peace flag. Most people don't actually know that we have two flags. We have a war flag and we have a peace flag for America. We fly the peace flag. The British territorial government have pretty much taken over our war flag, and they have absolutely started conflicts all over the world for the last 50 years, and just beaten our flag to death. But as far as what we do with this and how this works, as I mentioned a while ago, after the war, when all that was over, the courts took over. Well, there was a handful of Federation people who worked for the Federation of States, which was our Republican form of government after it was dismantled. They wanted to make sure that this didn't go, that we would get to restore our stuff. So they took a case to the Supreme Court, and the name of the case is Ex parte Milligan. It was the case in 1866 that you and I were talking about on the phone the other day. They actually are the ones that started that lawsuit because a guy after the war who was just a regular old guy ended up in one of the military tribunals, and he was hung. And they couldn't get him. He was trying to transfer out of that court because he wasn't in the military. And so we shouldn't be in military tribunals if we're regular civilians. We should be in our own land jurisdiction courts, not sea maritime jurisdiction courts. And that case is the case that actually sealed the deal for our Republican form of government, because it states in that case that as soon as our Republican form of government and our common law courts are set up in each state, then the military, maritime, admiralty courts would have to stand down and back aside and let us come in and take over and do court in general jurisdiction for all of our people. Now, this is where that breaks, because when you deal in courts, you deal in what's called jurisdiction. People have a confused way of jurisdiction. They think that jurisdiction is, here's Garland County over here, and here's, Pulaski County over here, that jurisdiction is those different locations, but that is not true. Jurisdiction is, we have what's called law, and this is international law. When you talk international law for jurisdiction, you get land, air, and water. Land, air, and water, that spells law. That is the three jurisdictions that operate in all courts. And the land jurisdiction is where the people fall, because we live on the land. The sea jurisdiction, okay, when you're out at sea, that is the British territorial government. They are over everything that has to do with commerce and the sea. Remember how I told you earlier that when we first got started, the British actually made a treaty with us to have power over our waterways and our inland waters for protection, right? We did it for protection. But because of that, they now had to come in through the court system, and in the sea, okay, they only had control over the sea. But when you get into courts, you have land jurisdiction, you have sea jurisdiction, you have air jurisdiction. Well, the land jurisdiction was the people, the Republican form of government, and all the people. The sea jurisdiction was the British territorial government. Well, when they came in with their carpetbag judges, and they set up shop all across the country. They operate in C jurisdiction. You actually, as a living person, cannot walk in their court, and they can't address you. They can't address anything about you. But if you're a U.S. citizen, they can do anything they want to you, because as a U.S. citizen with your birth certificate, they turned you into a corporation. And so now they can do whatever they want with you because you're not a living soul, you're a dead corporation. They did that through our birth certificates. So as far as courts are concerned, as our courts go up across the country, we have the right to deal in general jurisdiction, which means land, air, and water. We actually can deal in all jurisdictions, and each state works in international trade. So we have international law that comes into play as well inside each state, because each state is its own nation. We're a nation of states. That's why the United States of America, the U was lowercase, because each state was its own nation. And the power is at the state with the people.
Right.
And so when they took our courts over, now when you look at the courts and you see that judges make all of these decisions, right? You just walk in, it's a tribunal on in fact, in the Constitution, it says if something happens and it's up to a $20 dispute between people, they still got a trial by jury in common law, because your jury is who decides everything. Your judge is only there to administer direction, like, or answer questions or give law, just to state what law is. He's like an encyclopedia. But the jury makes all of the decisions, and the judge, the jury is your power in the common law court.
So is that how it would work in this other system?
So in this other system, we are the people. Okay, so we have in each state, now we have our federation, which is our national government. We have that in place. That's been in place for a long time. We have our states up. But as we set our states up, we have what's called the General Assembly. That's the whole assembly for the whole state. That's your Republican form of government for the state. And within that, we have three pillars. One of them is the militia. So our militia is run out of that. Our courts are run out of that. And then we have international commerce, which is set up as its own pillar, dealing with trade. That is how it's set up in the Republican form of government. And what we do is we have committees. So there's committees that fill each of those spots, and the American people actually run the government. You see what I'm saying? It's a government of the people, by the people, for the people. So we volunteer and we all help run it and put it together, and we do it for free and we volunteer. But you know what? When we hold our court cases, it helps protect our property and our rights and our freedom. And so that's what the Republican form of government was put into place for.
So really, in order for this system to take off, we need everybody to wake up to the alternative.
As many people as possible to wake up to the alternative.
Right.
But the good news is the ones that we have working now, if you want to jump in and join and become an American State National, go to that website, tassa@americanstatenational.org. But there's many of us that we know we've got to have this, because the people are just getting pillaged by a subcontractor gone amok. I guess that's the only way I can say it, because we are the priority creditors of this nation. We, the people, are the priority creditors. The British territorial government and the municipal government, which is the Vatican, that is in our nation right now, is our subcontractors. We are their employers. They're supposed to serve us, and that hasn't happened. And until our people come up and take it, we have the right to take it back, and we have the standing to take it back, which is why you have to change your status and not be a U.S. citizen anymore, because You actually were never born a U.S. citizen. You were born an American state national on the state that you were born in. So like for me, I'm an Arkansan. I was born in Arkansas. My husband, on the other hand, he is a Virginian because he was born in Virginia. So wherever you were born, that is your nation state.
Yeah, and you had mentioned a federation, and from what I understand, the federal government was never supposed to have the power that they do in trumping the states, and the decisions of states to decide, how they interpret law and states' rights that was supposed to be, much more powerful than the federal government. But, things are out of hand. And now we have this Federal Reserve System in place that is uh, putting all this debt and printing money like there's no tomorrow just to prop up the system. And they're causing the inflation. They're also, increasing the debt that supposedly the citizens are supposed to honor and to pay down with their taxes. And so, if we were to, and if everybody woke up to this alternative, couldn't we just declare that, hey, that's not, we didn't create that. That's not our debt. We're not going to honor it. That's yours, and the Federal Reserve should take care of all that. And whoever the people that are behind Oz behind the mask, that's their debt. They should take care of it, and we shouldn't have to worry about it.
Well, that's actually quite interesting because that's another thing that we've been lied to about when it comes to, quote, debt. In 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt came and took all the gold of the people. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, so he came and he took all the gold of the people, and he promised that he would issue what's called credits. He would give a currency, but he would give credits to people since they gave their gold in. We fully funded the British territorial government in 1941. After that, in 1933, after they gave us the birth certificates and they took the gold, the birth certificates are sold on the stock market, and they have been making money in accounts with our names on them and an all caps name since we were born. So they use that money for their slush accounts because they don't think that we know about it, and we didn't know about it until recently. But they've been doing
is that
it.
like Social Security?
No, it's not
that,
like Social Security. It's
that's an
that, okay,
alternative
so
fund. Yeah.
your birth certificate's been sold on the stock market since you were born, over and over and over and over and over, and it makes tons of money.
Wow.
And
How do we find out about that?
well, that is, you can go back and look at what happened in 1933 when he took the gold, and during that same time frame that Franklin Delano Roosevelt was president, we got the birth certificate. And it's on bond paper. If you go look, it's got bond numbers on it. And you can go to US Treasury I think it's .gov or whatever, and you can go type in your Social Security number or your birth certificate number or whatever. It'll tell you how much is in that account because it's actually held as an account. But
that is crazy.
The long story of that is that the American people have credits that we were never given. And our credits, we were supposed to be given to the American people as the priority creditors of the country, is the exact amount of their debt. Because every time that we get to pay and use one of our credits, it wipes out their debt on the other side. It balances the ledger. Anybody with an accounting would know that you got debits and credits on an accounting. So we have credits that we've never been able to use because the government didn't tell us we had credits in our names, and they keep running up debt. But if they would allow us to use our credits, which our American State National, the Federation, is already building a global bank. It should be finished soon, but it will be able to operate in all types of currency, all types of precious metals, and it'll also operate in credits, and we will begin to get our credits back that we are owed to the people. And
I have a friend who has been telling me about some of these things as well, and she had somebody assist her. She's going to court to settle that account and to get her money, I guess, that she's entitled to. And she told me that, it was like worth millions of dollars, and each person's is. And I just, you're the second person that has ever even talked about that. Most people have no idea. I myself, all this is really still so new to me. Is there a, a forum, or like, a group where you and others, I mean, is there a movement where people are sharing information to assist others to, I guess the website is that. And
my name is Ella.
Oh,
and I'm 10 years old.
We're at break. We'll be right back, everyone.
I'm one of the millions of children born to parents suffering from the sheeple virus. Symptoms include the inability to think for oneself, the attention span of a goldfish, and a strong belief in government and the mainstream media. It is estimated that 1 out of every 2 children are being raised by parents infected with the sheeple virus. But there is a cure. For as little as 19 cents per day, you can become a TFR supporter and help children like me get their daily dose of truth. Together, we will make sure every child has protection from deception.
I love motherhood more than I could have ever imagined. One of the most important things to me is nurturing a strong foundation in Yahusha's character in our children. That said, I made sheets that went over the fruits of the Spirit, the armor of God, the 10 Commandments, and creation days. Each day at breakfast, we would go over these and then read books like Cat in the Hat that just felt so void in meaning, but they loved the rhymes. I looked everywhere for rhyming biblical principles and couldn't find any. That's when I decided I would make them myself. Praise God, we now have our first book, Eliana and Ezra's Journey Through the Fruits of the Spirit, a first in a series. Every morning we now can continue to build strong principles even through rhymes, and I wanted to offer it to the babies in your life too. Please go to Sacred Word Publishing and search Fruits of the Spirit to get your copy, or you can go to prophecyforchildren.com. Thank you so much.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased, as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
Welcome back, everybody, for a second hour. That all went by so quickly. I definitely think we're probably have to do a follow-up. And, the questions that I have Also, for those of you that are in chat, if you have any questions that you'd like me to bring forth, just put them in caps, and I, going back and forth, so I will try to monitor and to ask them as we continue. But go ahead, Kimberly, if you can remember where we were before we got to break. And if not, just, pick up where you feel.
Okay. So our courts, I kind of want to pick up right here because the British territorial government is at the sea jurisdiction. We are the people on the land, and then the air actually covers both because the land. So pretend like you are on land, like at the beach, and there's all land on one side and all water on the other, and then there's all air in between. We were never supposed to be in these type of military courts that we have set up all across our country. These courts are in the sea, which is commerce. They deal in maritime. Maritime means commerce on the seas. They deal in admiralty and military tribunals, but it's all commerce. It has to deal with corporations. They can't actually deal with people. Living, breathing people, they actually can't. We're out of their jurisdiction. As an American state national, when you reclaim your inheritance and you reclaim that and not be a U.S. citizen anymore, then you're actually bringing yourself back over to the land and out of the sea jurisdiction. And so any court case, so now that our courts are set up in Arkansas, in our state, and because we, the people, are running our courts. See, we, the people, are elected to be a judge or a bondsman or a clerk. We're definitely not trained in any of these things, but common law is so simple that the common man can do it as long as you have your stuff organized and put in place. And that is what we are done with the help of the Federation, helping us get everything to where we're operating at right and at law and doing things correctly. And so that is how we get out of their system. They, for now, are going to have to run alongside of us. When I say they, I mean the British territorial courts and the municipal territorial courts that are set up across our country. But the moment that we change our status and are not a U.S. citizen anymore, then we become sovereigns again. The sovereigns that we were given, it's our inheritance from the Belcher family, from James Clinton Belcher's family. Now, James Clinton Belcher is our head of state over the Republican form of government, our Federation of States. He is our head of state. He's the direct descendant. It's his seals. So, I mean, not only do we have a claim because of the Declaration of Independence for our sovereignty and our Republican form of government that was hidden from us and stolen, we also have a direct heredity, the head of state with the seals in his descendantry all the way here with us now. So of our federation. So it just solidifies where we are. Now, the bankruptcy. Many people don't know that the British territorial government, United States of America, Inc., USA, Inc., has gone bankrupt. And also, so has the United States, Inc., which is the municipal territorial government. Both of those corporations, which is our, quote, government, which is a corporation, they went bankrupt. Both of them filed for bankruptcy. And our federation went in and took the bankruptcy because, remember, there are subcontractors. They work for us. So when they filed bankruptcy as corporations, not only did our federation take all of that debt you were just talking about, the $33 trillion.
Yeah.
But our federation also took the credit. They took all the credits, all the assets, and all the debt, because the debt washes off anyway, because
Right.
it's through credits. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And because of the fraud, the debt goes away because we're proving the fraud that they did. So that has already happened. And so Anna Von Reitz is our fiduciary. When did that happen?
Yes.
In 2019.
Oh, wow. How would people find more information about this, and why don't more people know about it? Because that's been such a concern, and it seems like that's going to be the basis for this whole economic crisis that is written about in the protocols and also the letter with Albert Pike and Giuseppe Mazzini.
That's correct. Yes, on their end.
Yes.
That they spell it out. The whole third war that they won is going to be a conflict. I mean, that they're playing their side out perfectly.
Right.
But they had no idea that we would find all of this history and stuff, and we, the people, are the power. So, I mean, here's another thing about our courts that is so interesting, and let me tell you about this. Jury nullification is what we have. In our common law courts, we have what's called jury nullification. And what that means, because we hold general jurisdiction in our courts, we are the highest court of the land. Our general jurisdiction, common law courts, are the highest courts in the land. We're higher than the Supreme Courts.
Awesome.
Because they work on limited jurisdiction where we work in general jurisdiction. Now, what that means on jury nullification is if Congress or the Senate or the police chief or somebody makes a law, okay, that we don't agree with as a jury, our common law jury can come in and do what's called jury nullification. We can absolutely, by decree, nullify anything that they bring. So once that goes in and we have a nullification, then we have that delivered by our marshal to the I guess the courthouse in Little Rock, Arkansas. You know what I mean? For the law that they did here. We can nullify at a national level, we can nullify at a county level, we can nullify at any level. So if the Senate comes in and says, we're going to keep giving money to Ukraine, well, we can do a jury nullification if they put something into a law or enactment that we don't agree with, and we can cancel it out.
Oh, we need to be doing that. That's like,
I know.
Executive.
Exactly.
Yeah, executive directive. I want to share just a couple things.
Okay, go ahead.
Really
Yeah,
quickly.
go ahead.
Just some comments in the chat room, because people are knowledgeable about what you're talking about. So I do want to share. But Adrian from Oz says, yes, we've heard this sort of story before. Very interesting. Jeannie Matos says, if you want BC bonds, you'll need to learn how to get into a court of equity, and will need to learn trust law. I'd recommend anyone who wants to learn to read the Corpus Juris Secundum, whatever that is. Yeah, but yeah, thank you, Jeannie, for sharing that. And Mama P says that there is a number on the back of your social security card that is the account number for where all these credits and things are found. And she tried to look it up, but that DuckDuckGo would not pull up the website. And there's, I'll just share a couple more, and then I'm going to turn it back over to you and get you to comment on this. Sherry says, good luck for phase 2 of your building project. Thank you, Sherry. We greatly appreciate that. Tim says, so if we claim to be the legal sovereign, live man standing on the land, are not the fictitious corporation, but are the beneficiary of both, can we close the account and receive the balance? That is a great question, Tim. And I believe that my friend Laurel is in that exact process. She has been and is receiving guidance from people that have done this exact thing. And I've asked her, how it is that she's able to do this. And she says it's a process and that she is going through the court system to do this exact thing. Um, and and so we will see. We'll find out. Now, I'm definitely going to reach out to her tomorrow, send her the link to the show, and have her, send me some comment on it. But would you care to comment on any of what people are talking about in the chat, or do you have any elaboration on any of that?
Okay, so if you're going through the court system and doing the trust and going back and getting your money back that way, there again, you're still going through their system.
Yes,
That's
I
right.
see that.
And so, and if you're going through their system, the only way they can actually deal with you is in your corporation status. And so you probably are not an entire American state national and could not work in our governments or our courts or come in from that angle, because you would be holding what's called dual citizenship. You would be holding citizenship of the United States at the same time as being an American state national and holding dual citizenship. But there are people that are doing it. I don't, there are those that are doing that.
How do you approach it from your side?
I mean, so from the Federation side, so
yeah, as far as closing that account or, trying to find out more of that.
Okay, so we've set up our global banking system, and it is already in the trial phase and is fixing to go live soon. It will hold all currency. It'll hold all, you can trade in any precious metals, currency, any commodity, but it also will give us our credits that were owed to us. It has the ability to operate in our credits. Now, I do know that the Federation has said that the funding is there. See, the money that was owed back to us was from the British territorial government. All the gold that was gone, it comes back to we the people. It doesn't go to the British territorial government or the municipal government. And so as fiduciary, Anna Von Rights has already got that money. She can see it. All of our credits and stuff are there. We're just waiting until everything has hit its final phases of testing before it goes live.
Huh. Well, that's awesome. That would help out a lot of people. And that would be, that would be enticement for people to actually make the transition and come to the other side. I mean, of course, that's not the only reason, but with the way that people are struggling and suffering in the system that we live in right now and all the debt that they've strapped on everybody, why not cross that bridge?
Absolutely. And if you're also crossing it for the courts, because guess what? If you get caught speeding, if your court is set up in your state and they know that they can't deal with your people because they can't deal with them in your courts, if you get a speeding ticket, you don't pay it because you didn't hurt somebody and you didn't hurt somebody's or steal anybody's property. So that's not a crime in our courts. And so there's so many, the 80 billion codes and statutes that we have as a quote territorial and municipal government don't apply to we the people.
Wow. So say for instance, somebody was trying to I don't know, give you a ticket or something. Can you talk about some of the things that apply, like property tax? I believe, isn't that one of the situations as well? With all this taxation and because it was all this illegal taxation and non-representation that forced, even the guys in the Boston Tea Party to throw off all that cargo, and these different the stamp tax and all of that. That yeah, but anyways, yeah, if you could, can you comment on
Yeah,
that?
so well, all of those, for instance, we're not supposed to. It's unconstitutional for us to pay taxes. It's unconstitutional.
Right, yeah,
We in fact, this is where they hoodwink us. They tell you right on their own papers, federal income tax. Federal income tax. Do you work for the federal government, Zen? Can you please show me your pay stub of where you work for the federal government? Do you have income from the federal government? I don't.
No, yes,
I don't. In fact, 90% of the country doesn't have a paycheck from the federal government. You know what I'm saying?
right, yes,
Federal income tax means you have to be a federal employee. Yeah. And you're not a federal employee. You're an American state national now. You are a U.S. citizen. You are not going to get away with it if you're a U.S. citizen because you're a corporation to them and they can haul you right into court and IRS. I don't pay taxes. I don't even have taxes held out of my paycheck.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, lawfully. You know what I mean? I work and I turn in my paperwork and she puts her stuff in and I don't have taxes taken out. But I couldn't do that as a U.S. citizen because I'm trapped. But the problem is it's unconstitutional for them to charge us for any kind of tax like that. Federal income tax, property tax. The only reason they charge us for property taxes is because the DMV has tied everything in. What had originally happened was that the states could get the federal government, the British territorial government, could have the Federation was trying to help them make money for their roads. Okay, so they gave them control over alcohol, firearms, and tobacco to help the British territorial government make money for its government for the 18 enumerated services that we asked them to do for us, right? And nothing more. So we did give control over to the British government but we also let them do roads. So in order for doing roads, when you had commercial vehicles, they were allowed to charge a tax on commercial vehicles because commercial vehicles travel the public roads, but they're making private money. So what the territorial government could do was issue license plates and taxes for commercial vehicles only. See, and by law, we don't have to, I don't have a license plate on my car. My truck is not registered through the state. I do have a plate on it. It's an American state national plate. We don't have to carry forced insurance on our vehicles. Now, here, if you're a common law and you damage somebody's property, you're going to pay for it. Do you see what I'm saying? So, I mean, you can have insurance or you cannot have insurance. Just know as self-governing, if you hurt somebody's car, you're going to pay for their car, even in our courts, because you've damaged somebody's property. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So basically, how that works, and my mind just went blank. What did I say before I mentioned that? Oh, the commercial
property taxes and driver's, not
driver's license. So the British territorial government, had control over the DMV for each. So they did that to help them with roads. Okay. But they were only supposed to tag and tax commercial vehicles. Well, how we're hoodwinked today is when we go register our vehicle, when we buy a vehicle, we go register and they give us a tag and all that stuff. What we've done is we've given the state, the corporation of the state interest, which is the British territorial crown, which is why the crown owns all your stuff. See, they own our deeds to our property. They own our vehicles through the registration process. But now when a cop pulls you over for speeding, he's not supposed to be pulling the American state national over for speeding. And if he does, and we say we're a national, he's not supposed to give us a ticket because it's unconstitutional. He can't. But because they think we're U.S. citizens and a corporation, and that corporation has to have a tag and a plate and
Right.
have all of those things because they're a corporation, they're a commercial business, and I'm not a commercial business anymore as an American State National.
Wow. So, wow, this brings up so much. As far as like, if they were to pull you over or anything like that, what do you just tell them that you are not, that you are an American state national, you're not under their jurisdiction, and that they just let you go? I mean, I guess they just kind of maybe roll their eyes, shake their heads, and don't even know what to do with you.
I can, or I can take their ticket, which I've done as well. Well, I've had a cop let us go, but we've also had one that my daughter was actually driving, and she's an American State National too, and got pulled over. And I said, just take the ticket. You know what I mean? She was nervous. She's like 19. She was nervous. And I said, just take the ticket. So she took the ticket. I was in the car with her. We took the ticket. And so I come home and write in red, this no territorial contract, no municipal contract. Because see, everything they give you, whether it's a warrant or a ticket or a tax, it is their, that's how they reach out to contract with you. You see what I'm saying? They want a contract. And so I don't have a contract with them. The only contract they have with me is the Constitution. Because see, I'm their employer. You see what I'm saying? We have to change our mindset. I'm the employer. And the only contract that I have with you is the Constitution. So your servant over here, your policy officer, your police officer, your policy officer for your 80 million statutes and codes has given me a ticket. And so I don't have a contract with any of that. And this ticket is void, and send it off to them.
Yeah. So you're like, hey, you're a public
with my
servant.
daughter's ticket, it just went away. I mean, they just dropped the case.
Right on. Yeah, I'm sure they don't want to, they don't want others to know. And so, okay, how, besides going to that website, can you tell us the process of how you became an American State National? How long you've done this, and do they not hassle you? Because I know, like the IRS, they're like mafia, they and even what's the guy's name? Aaron Russo. He showed in the Freedom to Fascism that taxes were voluntary, but they try to bully you into paying that, and most people do. So can you talk about that?
Yes, they are. They are voluntary. The taxes are. We don't actually have to pay them, and they are voluntary. But we do if we get trapped and we don't know our stuff. See, that's the thing. We have to know who we are. We have to stand on who we are, and we have to not back down, because we're right within the law. We're right within our country. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So,
yes.
And the problem is we haven't been educated.
Right.
So my mindset is to educate them. You see what I'm saying? I'm in the process right now. I'm in the process right now of educating 5 judges that they need to pull their cases and transfer their cases to our court of our American State Nationals who are entangled in their court system right now. And they were American State Nationals when they started the court case. You see what I'm saying? So they need to be pulled to our court. What are
some of the court cases? Just give us an example.
Well, an interesting thing is most of them are having to do with speeding ticket or no, because we have our private tags. They have the no tag, not having a tag, which we don't actually go, well, for our state, we're actually not going in and fighting them on it, because we were in the process of setting up our courts. With our courts set up, we don't actually have to fight them on it. We just have to stand, because our court actually has the general jurisdiction. You see what I'm saying? It's because it's not as doesn't have as much teeth if you're trying to do it in an individual status. But if you've set up your state government and your courts for your state government and your people, then that stands on its own. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. And it's that knowledge that you're sharing with the other side, and when you bring all this up and they realize you know what you're talking about, then that automatically trumps everything because of the Supreme Court case and all that that has set legal precedents for this alternative system. But anyways, Kimberly, we're at break. So we'll be right back, everyone, in about 3 minutes.
Buy this car, you'll get girls. Buy this bra, you'll get guys. And we're seeing it so much that we start believing these lies. But the truth is, the makeup they're selling to make you feel prettier is the same makeup you buy to stop feeling shittier about this lie they keep telling you that you are not enough. And what about the movies we watch, all the shows on TV? The more I watch, the more I see I need you to complete me. And yes, love is the answer, love is the key, but if you can't love yourself, how could you ever love me? And loving yourself, what does that even mean? Like massages and selfies and that sort of thing? Because the more I think about it, the more it feels weird. I've always been taught that self-love was something to be feared. I've been taught that arrogance is bad and vanity, it's not good. And even my bracelets are telling me to act how Jesus would. So what should I do?
The reviews.
I love motherhood more than I could have ever imagined. One of the most important things to me is nurturing a strong foundation in Yahusha's character in our children. That said, I made sheets that went over the fruits of the Spirit, the armor of God, the 10 Commandments, and creation days. Each day at breakfast, we would go over these and then read books like Cat in the Hat that just felt so void in meaning, but they loved the rhymes. I looked everywhere for rhyming biblical principles and couldn't find any. That's when I decided I would make them myself. Praise God, we now have our first book, Eliana and Ezra's Journey Through the Fruits of the Spirit, a first in a series. Every morning we now can continue to build strong principles even through rhymes, and I wanted to offer it to the babies in your life too. Please go to Sacred Root Publishing and search Fruits of the Spirit to get your copy, or you can go to prophecyforchildren.com. Thank you so much.
Greek men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on the genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Free by the sun, it's off and imagine it's got to be managed like awesome. Conceive of a face from the surface of awesome in need of a meaning and purpose. Indeed, they believe that they sight beyond God, so that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek, and that's solve the problems of man, but they really don't know that they know. The works of our hands are but just filthy bricks. We travel the land, standing up on my laps, set within a bunch of the facts of imagining God's beginning. The activists.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for final segment. Do you want to? What was I going to ask you? Let me just turn it back over to you and let you pick up where you had left off, and if I can remember, I'll go back to it.
So you had asked me before you asked me a few questions in there. One I didn't answer it yet, but because I was answering the IRS one, but you asked me the paperwork process that we do and how we did it. It's been 2021 when my husband and I found out about it. And we went on the TASA website, the tasa.americanstatenationals.org website, and you can actually correct your status there by changing the paperwork. You can actually take the paperwork as the template and then change your information in it and print it off and have it notarized and then have it recorded. And you can have it recorded at your courthouse, and then you also can have it recorded through our land recording office system through the Federation. It consists of an expatriation where we expatriate based on the act of expatriation. And there was a court case in 1980, I think, might have been 1992, that we had that gave us the ability to expatriate anytime we want to from being a U.S. citizen to an American state national, and they can't take that from us. Like the government can't take that right away from us. So I've expatriated from being a U.S. citizen in that paperwork, and you have powers of attorney. You take those off of you, cancellation of all those. We take our copyright. We copyright our name in this paperwork. So because they've taken our birth name and changed it into a corporation, so we take copyright over that corporation name so that they can't use it anymore to get money. Does that make sense? So we do that. So basically what we do with the paperwork, it's a whole stack of paperwork that you do, but they're in a template type form. You can either go online to TASA at AmericanStateNationals.org and go to correct my status and start doing the paperwork that way. That's what my husband and I did. There's actually a service now from one of our, or a few of our recording secretaries for the Federation will do paperwork for people. You give your information, they'll send you back your paperwork. If for a charge, it's like $50 or $75. There's different packages. My mom and dad did it that way, and it was way easier. I mean, they just pay it and they give their information, and within a few weeks they have all their documents and they go get them notarized, and you're good to go. You see what I'm saying? So
how much is
for
that
me,
service?
if I'd known about that service is $50, $75, or $100, depending on what package you get on it. But you could do it as cheaply as $50. And that is, I'll give you the website for that. It's mystatusselect.com. mystatusselect.com, and I'll put it in the chat as well.
Awesome. That's very cool. And how much was the service for your mom and dad?
Okay, so my mom and dad did the $75 package because it gave them.
All right.
But it gave them the federal. They got a zip drive, and it had like the Federalist Papers in there, and then all three constitutions. So I mean, it came with a zip drive packed full of information. So they paid that extra $25 for the zip drive.
Awesome.
And so, but it comes armed with all kinds of information and documentation that we just don't usually have at our fingertips. But that's what my parents did for my status select. And the lady's name is Evangeline. She's really good. But she helps get your paperwork for you if you didn't want to do it yourself.
That's awesome. I mean, that is not much at all for, I mean, just even providing that much information and doing all that to uh, hook you up like that. That is awesome. But question, with regard to like the hospital care system or, things like that, emergency situations or fire departments or, anything like that, how do you use their services if you are in need of those kind of things?
Well, we can still use
You
those
can still use,
services.
right on.
Yeah. It doesn't affect that at all.
Okay.
It doesn't affect any of that. That is actually at this moment, even though our Republican form of government is coming up, the British territorial and municipal, it's like being in a lane, like a highway that's got 3 lanes. They got to stay in their lane and we stay in our lane. You know what I mean? We're going to
Yeah.
run right next to each other for now.
Uh-huh.
But
Well, that is all very cool. This is really incredible information, and the fact that you have done this yourself and have set it all up, and you and your husband and your parents even, and now your daughter is also following suit. That's pretty amazing that you are living by example. And so um, and you said the other states are also in process of setting up their court systems, and what are the next steps once the states set up their court systems? How does this progress, and what do you see as for this kind of alternative to take over here?
okay,
Oh,
so
and there was a question from Tammy.
Yeah.
She wants to know about other countries, and
Well,
are they
yes.
going through the same?
Yes. So the interesting thing is that because the British territory had come in and taken all of these things, James Clinton Belcher, remember I told you about the
Yeah.
Belcher family that gave us our sovereignty?
Uh-huh.
The interesting thing is that the Belchers, when they came and they got everything back for us as Americans and set up head of state, because he has that ability of sovereignty, they made sovereign everyone in the world.
Nice.
So everyone in the world has their own sovereignty. They just have to build their governments. Now, the difference is they're having to build theirs from scratch with no constitutions and no Declaration of Independence. But they do have the Magna Carta of 1215. You see what I'm saying? So they do have things that they can stand on, and they can stand on the sovereignty. But internationally, this is actually going down. I mean, we have people, American state nationals all over the world. Well, not American state nationals. They would be a state national for whatever country they're in. You know what I mean? Like Spain, or you know what
Right. Yeah.
whatever country they're in. But where it works for us is let me go backwards. Let me shift backwards and say, okay, all 50 states, let's just say over the next couple years, over the next year, hopefully over the next year, we can all have our courts set up. But they're like Alaska has theirs up, Arizona has theirs up, Utah has theirs up, Washington has theirs up, we have ours up. I know there are states that are working on getting them up, but I don't know who else has done it at this point. But we are in communication with the coordinators from the different states. We do communicate. But once all the courts are set up and we have the militias, the courts, and the international commerce set up in all 50 states, then the federation actually comes in, and our continental marshals from the federation side can begin to do their work, but they actually cannot begin to work in their districts as our marshals until all 50 states are standing completely. But when that happens, then we have our federation courts that are common law courts that set up over the nation. We have an international court that works internationally, like the one that they have in Canada. And all of those will actually move into place. And our banking system that we already have going is a global, I don't know if y'all heard me say it, it's global family group. It's global family banking, because we will be working in all currencies and all precious metals. So each currency from all of these independent sovereign nations will be able to flow through all of our our non in the system banking system. You know what I'm saying? It's
So this alternative system, you said it's a global family.
global
Something?
family group. Yep, global family group.
Okay.
.com. I mean, they have a website, globalfamilygroup.com, but you can't actually become a part of their global banking system until you have all of your paperwork for American State National, because you have to submit your paperwork to them as well.
Okay. And you said that they are representing all of us in some manner, and that
Exactly.
they have assumed the debt.
Yes, so that the Federation, that's the bank for our government, our Federation government, but it's also the bank for us as American State Nationals.
Okay.
And but it will be used on an international basis.
Is that the one that is like representing the American State National movement? And they will be controlling commerce. Also, what about regulating currency? You know, because the Federal Reserve trumped all that and took that authority from Congress.
Right. Well, the Federal Reserve is just an independent corporation. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's actually never even part of our government. It's just an independent corporation. So it's off on its own, and that is a very horrible thing. We have our own currency. I do know that our currency, it's the Federation dollar, but I think that's what it's called. I could be wrong. They may have changed it, but we have our own currency. But our bank that we were talking about is not just the American State Nationals. It is our Republican form of government's bank. The bank of we the people, by the people, for the people. It's that, but we're all part of the people. So, but it's our government that actually has put that bank up for us, the Federation.
Okay, right on. This is also very complex, but we've got 15 minutes remaining, so I want to give you a chance to cover anything that you think is very important and that people should know if they wanted to get involved more, and and of course your contact information should people want to reach out to you directly.
Okay, so if you want more information, the tassa.americanstatenationals.org. When you get on there, there's a correct my status. You can look at that tab and look at all the stuff for correcting your status. There's tons of information and education on there that you just fish through and read. Not only that, if you go to the tab that says state, I think it's state coordinators or state, look at the states or whatever, our 50 states, however it's worded, you can click on that and it'll tell you. If you click on your state, it should pop up and it should tell you who your coordinator is for that state and a contact email for them to contact them. Or it may actually, sometimes when you click on that state, if they have a website, their website will come up and you can automatically go to that state's website and reach out to them directly for your state. That's something that you can do to get involved. MyStatusSelect.com is what I gave you. If you want someone else to do your paperwork, you can contact them and see if that would be something that is right for you. But basically, it's our inheritance. We're coming home to our inheritance. Our forefathers gave us this great Republican form of government. They gave us a great court system with the common law court system, our militia and peacekeeping force to help with natural disasters or anytime there's need. Those things were given to us by our forefathers, and it's our inheritance as sovereigns to stand up and self-govern and take control of what they left us, a government for the people, by the people, and of the people. And so it's very exciting. And as far as getting involved, reach out to your state coordinator. You can even ask questions on the TASA site and just start getting involved.
Right on. You've been doing this for how many years now?
2021. So it was the beginning of 2021 when we started doing our paperwork, and then I got involved with the state assembly. And there's a group of us here, and so we started working with the stuff we had with the state. We're now trying to build out our counties and get meetings in each county face to face. Some states already have that, but the key is to take this all the way down to a local level of your counties, and know your people in your counties that are American State National, because they're the ones that are going to be your jurors, and they're going to help. I mean, we're just taking care of our neighbor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is like communal and people getting to know each other and one another. How many people are real active with you and in what you're doing? Because I'm just wondering, as far as what kind of numbers it takes.
Well, it takes a lot of numbers to get it running like a well-oiled machine. You know what I'm saying? But for those of us that've been working on it, we have probably 130 in Arkansas. So.
Wow, that's a lot, yeah.
And we're trying to build out each county. And look, if you just look at it in numbers, if I want to make sure that we have a court in each county, each dealing with their own stuff and their own things, then I need at least a jury panel in there. And if I do officers, then that's 12. You need at least 17 people per county in order to run your courts in that county.
With you, how was it that you have now the authority to do these things? Is there like a electoral process, or is it just a matter of paperwork? The more that you get involved, the more authority they give you. I mean, what does that all entail?
Well, that's the interesting thing, because our government works in such a different way than what we're used to and what we were brought up. We're used to seeing a hierarchy, correct?
Right.
Your president, your vice president, you can just go, Speaker of the House, just go down the line, right? We're used to seeing a hierarchy. In the Republican form of government, there is no hierarchy. We the people. Who's doing this? We the people are doing this. So we don't have people who are like over us. Does that make sense? Now, I am the juror coordinator, but that job description just means that I am taking my responsibility to help build this thing. You know what I mean? And I've got people helping me do it, but I'm no way am I there. I don't control, like if there's something that they have a question with of, hey, maybe we shouldn't do it this way. Let's look at it this way. I mean, we all give input and we all do this together. There's no, this is my way or the highway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it takes some getting used to, because we come out of the hierarchy. So as far as the authority that we have as an individual, I have the authority because I'm in my sovereign state. You see what I'm saying? I'm in my sovereign state. But when I come in the capacity of the court as the juror assembly coordinator, and I'm coming and giving letters and stuff and talking to these judges and sending off ex parte Milligan packets all over the United States and all over Arkansas. When I'm doing that, I'm in the capacity of, we are the Republican form of government. I am a sovereign and I am we the people, and you are our employees and you have to stand down, and I have the law behind me for you to do it. So we have to have that mindset of, not that I'm trying to come in here and kick you out or start a war. I'm at peace, but I have the law saying that you have to stand down.
Uh-huh. And
so that's how we operate in that capacity. You know what I mean?
yeah. Has nobody, like, in you guys setting this up and creating this alternative, nobody's like hassled you about it, or told you, because I know all this is law, but it just seems odd to me that they would go along with it, just because, like the IRS and the voluntary taxes and how they just try to bully everybody. So I was just wondering about that.
Well, the interesting thing is that the British territorial government, as far as the federal government with the IRS, I sent them letters and told them, I ain't paying you a dime no more, and you're not taking anything out of my check. I'm not a U.S. citizen, I'm not a resident, I'm not a person, I'm an American living soul, standing on the land, and you can't tax me. And so we sent those letters off. That's part of the packet that you have filled out. You send that off to them and tell them that you send a proof of your status that you're an American state national. That shuts the IRS up. We've had cops, like I've had cops that have come and asked me about it, and they're trying to figure out a no, because the problem is people keep saying that we're sovereign citizens. And that is not true. A sovereign citizen is actually an oxymoron. You can't be a sovereign and a citizen at the same time, because you're a sovereign. If you look up the word citizen, if you look it up in the dictionary, it means you're a servant of the state. You're a servant of the government. Well, you can't be sovereign and a servant of the government at the same time. Does that make you see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So the whole sovereign citizen thing that the cops have, trying to make us look like a terrorist organization or whatever, is wrong. But yes, we have had people who have had entanglings with tickets and entanglings with them in minor things, but it's not in harming people. We're hoping that they will not retaliate. I don't know what they're going to do as far as where we're at right now. I sent them the letter. They got 10 days to respond. So if they don't respond in 10 days, we've already been sending these judges letters for the last 60 days. So we've done our due process. The next step for us, if these judges don't respond by transferring these cases over to our court, then we call into session our grand jury, which we have our grand jury intact here in Arkansas. We call our grand jury, and our grand jury will have our person come in and give the evidence to see if an indictment needs to be sent to these 5 judges to have them brought into our courts. And we would send that to the U.S. District Attorney that's over that district here in Arkansas. And that district attorney has to act. He's under the same stipulation of when a grand jury is activated with an indictment, they have to act. Because see, the grand jury, the interesting thing is, because it's not in the Constitution, the grand jury's not in there. And the reason it's not in there is because the Constitution, remember, was a contract between the British territorial government and the municipal territorial government. So the grand jury's not in their Constitution, that they have the contract with us, we the people, their employers, because under the Declaration of Independence, under the common law of England that we had already had in state established here, the grand jury comes out of the people, not the government. And so that district attorney has to act on that indictment, and that he has 10 days to have those judges in our court. So that's kind of where we're at.
You're going to have to definitely tell us, what happens and how it progresses. But we are 2 minutes out. If you would, final comment.
final comment is please check out tasa.americanstatenationals.org. Check out mystatusselect.com and just come and get in touch with us.
Join the movement.
That's it. Join to reclaim your inheritance is what I like to say. Reclaim your inheritance. You're a sovereign. You were always supposed to be.
Right on. Hey, thank you, Kimberly, for joining us this evening. And I appreciate everyone. Be blessed all. Have a good night. Shalom.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, what'd you think?
We paid $115.
Oh, was it 115? Okay. I told him there was a different package. I didn't know, but
Yeah.
tell him to look at the packages.
We got the highest one, the one with the zip drive and all that stuff.
This is iHeartRadio. iHeartRadio makes you want to move.
When you have a great melody,
I don't know. My thing just started.
Instantly connected.
I love it when the beat goes.
Did you know you can listen to Truth Frequency Radio on iHeartRadio?
Right.
Just download the app to your smartphone or smart TV and get the best of TFR wherever you are.